This one is fun. There's nothing like an argument between health inspectors on the food code. And so, with that, the headline, I think, tells you it's going to be good. The subject is it against health code to use a pocket knife in a restaurant kitchen? The person says, I'm having a debate, and the person they're having a debate with caught someone using a pocket knife, an employee using a pocket knife to cut a potato. I have a lot of questions in general, but we'll get there. They claim it's a health code violation. I'm not so sure that it is. Obviously, I wouldn't consider this to be best practice, but as long as the knife is properly cleaned and sanitized, what's the violation? I also understand that the answer might vary by region or state. True point there. Any help in clarifying? Something tells me he's got a bet on this. Would be appreciated. Well, fancy ad 9663. Let's throw it to the panel. Melissa, what say you? Pocket knife, potato cutting, kitchen, health code. What do you think?
Yeah. I am like probably the worst to ask. I didn't do food recently, but they make a good point that if it's sanitized and it's clean, what could be like the thing that I don't know that Caitlin hopefully can clarify is whether it does have to be a food grade like equipment or not. Because the good point about like if you're sanitizing it and it's technically considered clean, what's the difference between that and another knife? But there may be a regulation that requires food rated equipment that's beyond me.
So the big caveat or asterisk on this is check your state's food code. But Caitlin,
Yeah.
care to
Yep.
opine? Swiss Army knife and a potato. What do you think?
So, as someone who has used pocket knives to cut food before, I have a lot of thoughts on this actually. But the first one is Melissa's correct. It depends on your local food code and if it requires an NSF or a UL or other commercial rating for your utensils. And if it does, then this is obviously a violation. Is it a critical or non-critical violation? It's probably, or priority or foundation. It's probably a foundation or a non-critical. But I think when it comes to sanitizing a pocket knife, that is not an easy thing to do. I cut apples for my horses with a pocket knife every day. And when you close that pocket knife, that little groove that the knife fits into is almost impossible to clean. It's gross. It's nasty. So I think even if it's properly sanitized, I would be hesitant to allow it to be used because of that groove and how hard it would be to clean. And saying a Swiss Army knife, that is even harder to clean and sanitize as a whole. So I would call it a violation.
See, that all rings true to me. So you've done a lot of food inspections. You're in this restaurant, and must be an odd place if that's the utensils they're using. But you walk up on the person with the knife and a potato cutting. Do you mark it? Do you put it as a general comment if it's not a violation? How would you have treated it if it was you doing the inspection?
I would ask questions immediately. That's kind of the thing that I always started with, like, hey, what's going on? Why are you using this? How did it come to be in your hand? You know, how did you sanitize it before you used it? If it's just a code violation for a non-commercial knife, yeah, I'm still going to write it. I would recommend that they get rid of it for sure. But I wouldn't be like, we're throwing this knife away immediately. I think it's definitely a violation. It's something to comment on, but it's not like a voluntary condemnation.
Context, right?
But asking questions.
And I love that part. The first thing you said, I have to ask questions. Is that an oft overlooked thing, especially maybe for younger inspectors just starting out, is the remembering that there's probably a story there. It's human beings, and maybe I should start with a couple of questions.
I think so. I think people are afraid to ask questions a lot of the times, especially when you start out, right? You're new in a restaurant. Maybe you haven't had a lot of experience in the back end of a restaurant, and so you kind of feel out of your element, and you don't feel comfortable like asking a lot of questions. But I think that's always key for every violation, whether it's cold holding or a non-commercial utensil. You have to ask questions about what's going on, why is this happening. Like my first question was, are they on a guest ranch? Because when I was working on a guest ranch, I did have a pocket knife in my pocket all the time. We did serve food on a overnight trip where we served dinner. And there was a time when I cut my personal steak with a pocket knife. So I have questions like why is it that this person thinks it's acceptable to have a pocket knife in the kitchen? Did they break a knife and they needed one really quick? So I think just asking questions is always overlooked, but it's always very key part of your inspection.